Hi, I'm Patty.
I'm Kim Michelle.
And I'm Jill. Welcome to our podcast. It's a great day to talk.
Because honestly, what day isn't a great day to talk?
So join us in our conversation.
A Great Day to Talk is brought to you by St. George Design, offering complete website design, social media management, search engine optimization, Google and Facebook ad management, and many other digital and print marketing services. stgeorgedesign.com. And by Richardson Brothers Custom Homes, third-generation builders who have been building custom homes in southern Utah for over 25 years. They will take your dream home from concept to completion. Contact richardsonbrothers.com. The April Gates Group and Zion Canyon Real Estate have been specializing in helping southern Utah clients buy and sell property for over 18 years. We can help you too. Call or text April today. 435-632-8869. 435-632-8869.
Well, good evening and welcome to our 41st episode of A Great Day to Talk. And I'm here with Kim Michelle Pullen, my good friend.
Hello, Miss Patty.
Hello. And we are missing our friend Jill Burkett.
Yep.
Today, she is going to be on sabbatical for a couple weeks, I think, but we're hoping to get her back real quick. And it also brings attention to today is National Women's History Month. Actually, yesterday was International Women's History Day. And we're going to be talking about that today. And I can't think of very many other strong women who might be stronger than Jill herself.
Yeah.
So she is a strong example of me of being a wonderful woman.
Yep.
And I am glad you guys are here. I also want to mention last week we had Riley Richardson on the podcast.
So
we were
fun.
talking about the crisis in the Ukraine and Russia, and as it's still going on, we are sending our thoughts of love to prayers and the
Faith, hope.
all of it,
all of the above.
To our friends in Ukraine. And so today we want to just jump right back in and talk about wonderful women.
Yeah. So
have
how
made
fun
history.
is that? Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah. Or they've made history or they're about to make history. History that we don't know about yet. But
Right.
I know that we have the opportunity to work with a lot of young women, and many of them are such powerful leaders in the environment that we experience that I can't wait to see what they're going to choose to create beyond, high school and as they go out into the world and really make a difference. So we have the opportunity. We're in a very unique position that we get to see that generation coming up. Both really great men and really powerful women. And I think that's one of the things that is uniquely different is we can just say we have these really powerful kids.
Oh,
and
for
we don't
sure.
even have to make necessarily some kind of distinction.
Right.
Yeah, because they exist at all grade levels and gender and however you identify with gender, all of those kinds of things.
Right.
So,
Well, just the other day, I am teaching the third of three sisters so far. And I asked, we were talking about where's everyone going for spring break? And one girl's like, oh, I'm going to Boston in May. And I'm like, oh, gosh, what for? And she goes, well, my sister, and I taught her, and I didn't know this about her. She's graduating from MIT in May like chemical engineering.
Yeah.
Oh, me too. I'm also doing that.
or could have.
I could have, but really, I just, I just
be a teacher in the classroom.
I'm like, I did not know she went to MIT, which is, that's a great college. There's a lot of opportunity for a lot of girls in all sorts of colleges and boys too. I'm not saying that's the only great thing out there, but I just was like, wow. And chemical engineering, like, what could she do for us? Is she going to do some genetic testing? Is she going to be working in drug production as far as, maybe she'll find a cure
the
for
next
something.
breakthrough. Yeah.
And so I just super impressed with these kids that I didn't ever think about wanting to work that hard about I never even thought, I want to go to chemical engineering. I was thinking, that sounds hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe because it
is
hard.
It might be because
for me,
it is hard. Yeah,
for
me.
sure. That's
Yeah.
not a gift
For sure.
of mine.
No,
Yeah.
and I think that's awesome that she had that gift. You know, I think there are things like that come naturally too, that kind of propel your career choice or your college choice. And for me, I always wanted to do psychology since high school.
Yeah.
And I love talking about it. So it works for me.
Yeah. And I think that is, I'm working with the Sterling Scholars at our school, and one of the girls there is the Sterling Scholar in one of the sciences, but hers is really to be a powerful engineer that also brings other women along with her. And she talks about even now how in her family, the culture really isn't that is a career that girls and women go into, that's a career that men go into. And she is very, very committed to changing that thinking.
That is amazing.
Yeah. It's really exciting to see kids showing up in that way.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we wanted to take some time because, like Patty said, we have the opportunity to work with powerful young women. And my cohorts on this show, Patty and Jill, powerful beings. And it's not just in looking at some kind of a timeline to see, okay, they did this and then they did this. It's just standing in that space that empowers other women as well. And but without disempowering another gender, right? It's so it's so not about
it's not a piece of pie.
Or exactly. There's more than enough leadership. There's more than enough need to be filled. There's more than enough to go around for everyone who chooses to step into that space.
Absolutely. I saw something the other day that I thought was really telling, and I've heard it before, but it was I won't be able to recreate it right now, but it was basically just because someone else gets something doesn't mean you don't.
Right.
It's not pie. If they take a piece of pie, that piece is gone. It's there's enough for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we can make more pie.
Yeah.
So I think that is the baseline of scarcity thinking, really, is that there's either I get it or you get it, or either this portion goes to you, which means there's nothing left here, versus this kind of both and conversation. I can have both this and I can have this, and you can have this and you can have it too. Right. Yeah. And so I think one of the things that I love about, so some people may say, well, why do you need a whole month then? If it's not yours or mine, or your piece of the pie versus my piece of the pie, then why would we need to designate a specific month to honor or to highlight women in particular? And it doesn't have to be women. You could say it about any other group that we tend to highlight. And I think that kind of thinking is scarcity driven as well. That if we acknowledge something over here, then that means we're diminishing something over there. Here. Right. And it isn't that. It's simply to say it's part of our history and we get to embrace that. And in this moment, we're just going to acknowledge this. It doesn't mean in another moment we won't acknowledge
Exactly. And I think it, like any, I don't want to say marginalized necessarily, but any group that's had to, fight their way in, deserves an opportunity to be highlighted, whether it's a day or a month or whatever. And there are groups that they were already celebrated just by being who they were.
Right.
And so I think a month is fine. And, there's so many women who have made such strides for the rest of us.
Yeah.
And it did start with some sort of crusade or some sort of
absolutely. That's
fight.
how this started. That's how National Women's Month started, and even International Women's Day, which was yesterday. That's really how they started. So in 1909, it really started with an acknowledgement of those who made changes within the garment industry. So there
Right,
was a
in New
huge
York.
labor protest, basically,
Right.
about the conditions, the pay, all of those kinds of things. And in that period of time, most of the workers in that industry were women.
Right.
And so they mobilized themselves and they protested the conditions, the wage, all of those, even the acknowledgement, all of those things.
Well, that, and they even challenged child labor at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's really kind of how it began. In 1978, California petitioned for it to become a broader day because women, the accomplishments of women, were not included in the curriculum K through 12. And so
Right.
they were like, maybe, just a thought, it's 1978,
Maybe we could add some women into the history
into
books.
the conversation
Yeah.
about making changes and their contribution. And it doesn't mean that anyone else isn't making great contributions, but they're
just add
already
it.
in the history book.
Right.
So let's have a conversation about those who are not in the history books. And I think as we talk about women and you mentioned marginalized groups, I think that we don't have to apologize for that, because if you do look throughout our history, we tend to, as anyone would, emphasize those things of achievement. And it just happened that in the early years, men were the ones, white men, males were the ones that had positions to make big achievements.
Right.
And that you would acknowledge as having made a big achievement because it's what was
Absolutely.
accepted then.
Right.
Anything else would kind of be rejected. Hopefully we expand our awareness.
For sure.
We hope.
Right. And I know history books have added many other things, many other groups besides women that were left out in earlier
Absolutely.
days. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think we probably still have a ways to go.
I would absolutely agree. And I think sometime we'll probably have a conversation about critical race theory.
Yeah.
Because that's at the core, I believe that's really what that is about.
Yeah.
Is simply to acknowledge and recognize the contributions that were made. And I don't think anybody would really object to that. I think the conversation takes another divergent course when you talk about critical race theory as it's designed to be taught in
Right.
the college or university level, that is talking about systemic racism, versus simply let's just embrace contributions made by all peoples of all race that
And gender.
built and gender that and stature and weight and
height,
however
and
you want to
socioeconomic
minimize
status.
someone
Yeah.
or label them accordingly.
Absolutely.
Let's just take all those labels and let's just simply rejoice in everything that has gone into making
our
us
nation.
who we are.
Yeah, our nation.
Yes.
and even internationally.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So after that California push, then in 1987 is really when it was petitioned to become kind of a month-long celebration in the month of March, lobbied Congress to recognize it as that, and here we are. And I have to say that I did not march in 1987 to get this lobbied in front of Congress, nor did my husband. But I have to say that if we had been more aware, my husband probably would have been right on the
for
front
sure.
line.
Let's go.
Because it's not a gender specific issue. It's just like, hey, let's just acknowledge all the contributions that have been
Right.
made across the board,
Absolutely.
wherever they may lay. Yeah.
I was graduating from high school in 1987. I didn't even know any different,
Yeah. So I'm older.
but not
So,
by much.
Enough that I was probably already married by 1987. Yep, I was married with 2 babies and already in my first teaching position.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot going on. So I will say this, not part of the lobbying movement, but definitely part of the movement because I was
Educated.
married, I was educated, I had children, and I was in my profession. And so I believe that at some level, I totally represented that movement, even though I may not have been actually lobbying in Congress for that.
Right. So I'm thinking about all the women in my life that have been great examples of strength and work ethic. And I never once questioned growing up that I couldn't do whatever I thought I wanted to do. Now, again, it wasn't chemical engineering, but I was drawn to travel and language, other languages and other cultures. And in 1986, well, it was probably 85, I said to my parents, actually, it might have been my dad that said, you ought to be an exchange student. And I was friends with a couple of the exchange students from Sweden that were in my high school, and I'm all, yeah, I want to go to Switzerland for some reason. I didn't know any
Because they're neutral.
Yeah. Yes.
You don't have to say why or why not. You just are going to Switzerland. Yeah.
But I couldn't qualify for Switzerland because I hadn't taken any French or German classes. I had taken Spanish. And so I said, yes.
That's
Croissant. So I applied to be an exchange student in Sweden. So my senior year of high school, I lived with a family over in Göteborg or Gothenburg, Sweden. And it didn't even occur to me that I couldn't do that, or I would be so far away, or I'd be homesick or whatever. And my parents were full support financially as well. And my dad even was like, yes, this is great. Get out, go. This is wonderful. And he thought that I would come back and work for the government as a linguist liaison or something, and
translator.
Yeah, and I'm all, I don't know. I'm really happy with the life I've chosen, and however, what an experience, and to have full support, and to also never question that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with both my parents. My parents owned a business. My mom was a hard worker, and we learned to work hard. We learned that that was really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
We were either working or going to school or playing hard.
Yeah.
And I think that my mom's work ethic and service she has been a strong woman in my life that has taught me a lot about hard work, and I can do whatever it is. And I still today think, I think I'm going to go do that. And I feel like I can.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that's so powerful around that is that we all have an example of a very powerful, strong woman in our lives, mother, in all of our cases, I think, that really supported going out there and being whatever that is that you want to be. And I have to say that I think we all had supportive dads who also said, yep, go out there, girl, and rock that world, because that's who you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you ever think you wouldn't go to college?
I did think that. In fact, I told my class just recently, because we're getting ready to take the ACT.
Yeah.
And some of them were like, I'm not going to register for the ACT because I'm not going to go to college. And I said, all of you should take the ACT, because all it does is keep that door open. You don't have to walk through it. You know, you never have to go through that door. But if you ever wanted to, then you may be closing some of your options by not taking it. So this first go around, it's amazing. It's wonderful that in this first go around, we create a space for every student to be able to take it without charge to them. So hats off, really, to
Utah for doing that.
And Washington School District for creating that space for every single student to be able to take it free of charge. And I always say you should take it and you should work to do your very best on it, because I didn't plan to go to college, even though it was in my heart to always be a teacher. I always thought that was the course. I just didn't have the financial wherewithal to get to college. And so I didn't take the ACT, actually. And it wasn't until my senior year that the debate coach from Southern Utah University came down and saw me in a final round and offered me a full tuition right after that round was over to go to school. And thank goodness at that time, not taking the ACT did not disqualify me from that department scholarship. Although in today's world, it could.
Right.
No matter what you scored on it, you just had to have an ACT score. For me in those days, because we were etching on stone tablets. So to
using
write
an
out a whole
abacus
ACT,
for math.
that was really hard.
That was rough.
Yeah, so they didn't require that. But
I never took the ACT.
yeah, I didn't either.
So when I was a senior in high school, of course, I was in Sweden going to high school there. And they gave me a diploma from Pineview High as well. And I graduated over in Sweden at a high school called Hvitfeldtska. But when I came home, because I hadn't taken the ACT, I just took the college entrance exam. But today it's different. In fact, speaking of Sterling Scholars, I know that we have a Sterling Scholar that won in our school. And as they're going to go to Region or whatever, she said, "Oh, I don't have an ACT score. I never took it." Well, now she's disqualified.
Yeah, we have one as well.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's what I'm saying about it just keeps doors open. Even if you scored
18.
Yeah. Just keep as many doors open as you possibly can.
Right.
And I think that's probably one of the things that I also learned from my mom, who I believe always saw herself professionally, but there was a host of children, and that kind of became her primary responsibility until she was in her 40s and went back to school and got a double master's and, really showed us what it was all about, what was always in her heart to do. And that's why some of the women that I so believe have influenced me have not created that either or for themselves.
Right.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg is one of, I should know her story better than I do, because I do find her so fascinating and such a powerful, charismatic role model for
leader,
women and mentor for anyone, not just for women.
Right.
But the ability for her to be the first in so many categories, the first woman or one of 9 at Harvard Law School, the first one to be both on writing for the Columbia Law Review and Harvard Law Review at the same time, to create the ACLU for women's rights and women's position, but to defend a man who had been discriminated against is so smart and so forward thinking at the time. And then to argue 6 cases in front of the Supreme Court and win 5 of them before you become a Supreme Court justice yourself, and to be a mom that she valued just as much as what she was doing on the professional side of things. And one of the things that I love most about her as an example to me is she had very strong positions and very strong ideas on things, which I can have. And I'm not hesitant to really vocalize them, which neither was she. One of the things I can continue to grow in from her example, even though she's not here any longer, is her ability to still create these amazing relationships with people that she politically and position-wise did not agree with.
Right.
But could still enjoy their company, and they enjoyed being with her, and have these wonderful friendships and alliances and relationships with people who ideologically were very different from hers. But she could still do that. And for me, that is a place that I know that I will continue to seek out that mentorship from her writings and from those kinds of things. Even though she's not here anymore, she still continues to impact every young woman who knows about her.
Right.
or old women in my case. And that's why I think it's so important that we take time for these kinds of accolades and months of awareness, because that's all it does, is it just lets me, what can I know that I didn't know before?
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like it was about 1918, a lady named Mary, not Mary Washburn, but, oh my gosh, why can't I remember her name? Anyway, she was the first female that completed a PhD program in psychology at Harvard, but they didn't award her the PhD because she was a woman.
A woman.
Yeah. And it was just a couple of years later than when Mary Washburn completed that, and Harvard allowed the PhD. And they later tried to give the first lady, that I can't remember her name for whatever reason right now, they said, okay, we'll give you the PhD now. And she's like, no, thank you. She went and got it somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't need it from you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's so fascinating. And I think that we're blessed to have strong women in our lives. My sister is such a powerful example of such a strong woman. And I think, has all of these children, most of them special needs children that she has embraced and loved, and never birthed a child of her own, but is just such an amazing mom. And I see sometimes her wondering, what would the history books write? And I just want to say to her, I hope you're listening, Stephanie, and if you are, I will say to this to you, I will write your history chapter, because how you show up in the world with so much love and so much compassion for those who, by many accounts, would be seen as less than. You never see them that way. And if that is the only calling card that is your future stamp, then boy, I want that stamp too.
Absolutely. She does. And I love that you said that about how she's never seen them in any other way than perfect.
Yeah. Exactly how they are. It doesn't mean your day is perfect.
No. And I imagine that her days are hard for sure.
Yeah. But, there's so many, and that is the one thing that I can sometimes see among my great friends who are really powerful women, and those examples that I've had in my life, my sister and my mom, and even my ancestors, they hid people during the war and those kinds of things that my sister knows so much more about than I do. So if she's on, I hope she says something here so that she can enlighten us. But the one thing is that I think if there's one thing where I think women can still embrace more of and step into more of, from my limited perspective, it would be that in addition to seeing the world in all its possibilities, which I think women tend to do, not to generalize, but I just did, and the possibility of what can be, and this unconditional kind of love for all of humanity, regardless of where they happen to be born, is also, and I can speak to this myself, is sometimes we feel that sacrificing everything for that is what our mission is. It's what our call is. And if there's nothing left in the tank for us, if there's nothing left for us to give back to ourselves, then that means that's a day well lived.
Right.
And that's the one thing that I think as a general group, women can choose to embrace more of, is that leaving as much in your tank as what you share with other people is a vital part of who and what you are.
I agree. I think there is this competition in a way. It might be subconscious, but of who does more for others and who sacrifices more of themselves. And that any time, in fact, I grew up, if you're doing something for yourself, like a pedicure or a manicure or whatever, that is selfish. And I think the new mental health is self-care, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a different it's a different generation now, but I do remember my mom saying, almost justifying that I got my nails done. She would have to say, oh, it's the only thing she does for herself. Like,
Yeah.
so it was okay. And I do sometimes feel like I can't tell some people everything I do for myself. And that is self-care. That is healthy. If I get a massage, that is a luxury. And it is a luxury to me. Believe me, that is a luxury. But it's also physically healthy for me to do that.
Absolutely.
And then all the other different things that we all do that for a generation ago would have been viewed as very selfish.
And I don't even know, even if it has to go far, even if it's ended just a generation ago.
No, I agree. But why is it that we feel like we have to either justify or hide self-care? And I don't think, men, and I'm not saying this to all men, but Riley could go golfing for 5 hours, and I would say that is a form of self-care.
Absolutely.
And
or fishing.
Or
with
fishing.
Scott.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. And something that he does enjoyably. And it took me a while to recognize that that was a good idea for him to do that. But it was also when I was having babies. So I was like in the middle of my shit,
Yeah.
But I don't think he ever once said, well, it's the only thing I do for myself. That wasn't, men didn't have to do that. No.
Mm-mm.
And, but women were supposed to be selfless and it became a martyr. And I just hate that.
Yeah. Because it diminishes, it diminishes you rather than exemplify your strength and your power. And I think sometimes we think that strength, because I'm a strong woman, that means I do need to take on the weight of the world.
Right.
I do need to make sure that as a caretaker, everyone is taken care of and everyone is good and all of those kinds of things.
Right.
And that if I have anything left in the tank, I'm supposed to then run on empty to make sure that I run out of fuel on the side of the road as I'm taking somebody dinner that night.
Right.
I think the next evolution in when we're celebrating Women's History Month will be that acknowledgement around it isn't selfish to make sure that you're taking time for you and that you're finding space that's enjoyable for you for your own reasons, not for anybody else's reasons. They don't have to serve anybody else. They just serve you.
Right.
And that's enough. And I think we've permissioned some members of society to be able to do that. And then even sometimes I think we get resentful when they can, because for whatever reason, we haven't necessarily embraced that as women, and or I haven't embraced it for me.
Well,
I can be very specific to me.
100%. And I didn't take it.
Well, that's what I mean.
But I mean, like when Riley would be golfing or whatever, and he's like, well, you can go do whatever you want to do. I'm all, can I really? Because the kids, and it was this whole thing. And when I learned to navigate better, my, put my mask, my
your oxygen
mask on first. It was probably about 22 years ago when I first heard that. Put your mask, your oxygen mask on first before, if you're traveling with little kids, you need to put your oxygen mask on first. And I hadn't ever considered that. I didn't think I was supposed to have any air. I thought I was just supposed to give air to everyone else.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that is 100% true. If I'm not taking any air and I'm giving air to everyone else, I'm going to suffocate, and then I'm no good to anyone. And that is true. When we don't honor ourselves and take care of ourselves, we aren't good for others. But I think in the National History Month spirit, we have definitely what would be the word? We haven't allowed ourselves to do that because we had to keep going and prove and do and nurturing and caretaking and all the things. And anytime we did have time for ourselves, it was viewed different as selfish. And it shouldn't be.
No, it absolutely should not be. And I hope that's the next evolution. And I think I really do feel like that is coming from the young people that I get to work with. At the same time, I hope it's not until they're my age before we actually step into that next evolution. You know, I hope that we can, and it all starts by every powerful woman making the choice and decision to say that what I can give and contribute to someone else, I'm equally almost responsible to give back to myself in the same way in which I would give to someone else.
Yeah, so I could show up in the best way possible.
And even if it wasn't that, right? Even if all it did was give me space to be grounded in me, eventually, right, other people will probably benefit from that. But I think if even the thinking around, if I need to take care of myself so I can be a better caretaker of other people, is diminishing that you can just take care of yourself,
right?
Because you deserve to take care of yourself. And I think we, this generation, and I'm including myself in the younger generation there, because every chance I get, that's exactly what I do. But I think that our generation has been, we can do all of these things, and we want to do some self-care so that we can better serve other people. I hope the next iteration of that is I can give to other people and be a caretaker for other people, and I get to be a caretaker for myself because I get to be a caretaker for myself.
For no other reason.
No other reason. End of story.
Yep. And also to add to that, no is a complete answer. And you know what I mean? Like, for no other reason, I don't have to explain myself. And I love that. One of the things that I talked to my own daughters about, and I'm sure you did as well, and was that being knowledge that I can take care of myself was liberating.
Yes.
And I cannot express that enough, how important it is to be able to know that I can take care of myself.
Yeah. It doesn't mean you will choose it.
No.
But to know that you can. Yeah.
That I choose in this relationship, or I choose in this situation, but I know I can financially take care of myself, not as well as in a partnership.
It might not be the same.
Not be the
might
same.
Look different.
Yeah. But knowing that I have that ability is empowering, and I definitely wanted my own kids to have that same feeling.
Yeah.
Because of that, just by that empowerment, knowing they can leave if they needed to in any situation. And, of course, we're not talking about bad relationships and things like that, but just women being able to manage is just that much.
Just that much, because I think that your relationships will ultimately be better when you, because if you don't sit in that space of knowing that is true, then you can have all of this negative conversation going on in your head around, well, I don't like this and I don't like that, but I can't do anything about it. I'm powerless because I don't have the ability to be able to go out on my own. And then you're picking at your relationship, pick, because you don't know what else to do, rather than I can just choose and embrace this relationship knowing that I don't have to be here. I can totally make it if I needed to. I'm now choosing because I want to be here.
Yes.
Versus I don't feel like I have an option, which is a very different energy.
Absolutely. And I want to applaud all of the men and the women's in this group of women who are women of history.
Yeah.
That the men were supportive of their powerful strength.
Women.
Yeah. Because I think that takes a great person as well. I know that Scott and Riley are not intimidated necessarily by our strengths, and embrace that.
Yeah, in fact, Scott is the first one to say more self-care, Kim Michelle, more self-care, right? he advocates for that for me more
Right.
than I can choose to embrace it for myself. And I think that's why we love the men in our lives that our powerful relationships have brought into our lives, because they so embrace that. As did Ruth Bader Ginsburg's husband, Martin, was an attorney himself, totally supported all of her choices and decisions, even though it meant he had to move. He had to make changes in his career. And he was so willing to do that in that partnership, which is just so beautiful as well.
Right. And I know for us, and Judd and Jill as well. I
Of
know
course. Yeah.
Judd has supported Jill in all of her endeavors. And I can't imagine Riley wanting someone who wasn't strong and didn't have an opinion.
I think sometimes Scott might
I'm
wonder.
sure Riley, yes, I'm sure there are times when he was like, can't you just agree and do what I say? Yeah.
But we know you're just kidding
Right.
in that moment when you're thinking that.
For sure.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to just leave here in this discussion, and thank you. I love this idea of this conversation, and even though we'll have completed this conversation here, I hope it's still a conversation that's taking place out there in the world, and that we're just choosing, for whatever reason, to celebrate women and women in history and the women who will be our history in the future.
Well, and can I just really quickly add?
course.
Sorry. I think we need to identify, well, not identify, but I think we need to talk about celebrating women in our circles.
Yes, because
Colleagues.
women
aren't always great to other women.
Yeah.
It's not a competition. We're not, if you have a piece of the pie, then I'm out of pie.
Yeah.
There is room for all of us, and on all of our strengths. And we need to be more supportive of women. Women need to be more supportive of women.
I would totally agree with that. And I think you will find in many situations, men are more supportive of powerful, strong women than other powerful, strong women are supportive of powerful, strong women.
Yeah.
And so I think part of that is just the idea of, right, if
There's
I
not
am,
enough,
then you can't be.
Yeah, there's not
And,
enough space for
give,
a lot
take.
of powerful, strong women, and there is enough room.
More than enough room.
Yes.
More than enough issues that need to be resolved, more than enough love that needs to be given, more than enough care and grace and compassion. There's more than enough for the world, for all of us to show up in that space. And one of the things that I thought was so powerful as we're in National Women's Month and International Day yesterday was the Ukrainian women who made a statement, and this is going to be a very rough translation, and it's not even the most powerful part of the translation, where they go on to really call out what they're going to do to those who were invading their country. But that yesterday, women leaders put out videos that they had secured their children in a safe place to make sure that the genetic pool of the Ukrainians would live on regardless of what the outcome was here. But they had secured their children, and the woman leader was heard saying that the children have been taken to safe regions, whereas the women are all set to join the Ukrainian army and have been blessed to protect our land. And they are joining the Ukrainian soldiers to fight for those things that they also want their children to believe in democracy. And, that when a bully shows up this way, then this is what we do. We stand united, regardless of gender, regardless of age, regardless of whatever else, regardless of nationality, regardless of whatever. When you see that, you get to join your forces to combat that. And I'm just so inspired by not just the Ukrainian spirit in its general terms, but specifically these women who have young children who are, I'm going to make sure my children are taken care of, and then I'm going to show them what it means to fight for democracy.
Yeah. And the bravery that would take,
Yeah.
and the strength
Yeah.
to even be able to leave your kids, even though that you knew they were safe, and to go fight. And what people have endured.
Yeah.
In other countries and in our country,
Yeah.
for their children.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, there's no question about that.
Right.
And that is regardless of gender, men, women. I mean, we all may
for sure.
sacrifice and it may look different, but there's plenty of that to be acknowledged and go around. So
Wow.
thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all the powerful women that have helped shape my
Yeah. And this would be my
life.
tug out there to you is, write a little thank you to a woman in your life who has really provided you with a powerful example. It probably means more to them than you could possibly know to receive something like that.
And they may not even know that
Exactly.
they were a leader for you or an example for you.
Absolutely. So we won't be here next week because it is our spring break. So we're going to take the week off. It's a perfect time to go back and listen to maybe some of our podcasts that you missed in the past, or re-listen to one of your favorite podcasts.
Yes. And we come back with another powerful woman as our guest in 2 weeks. And hope to see you there.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening to It's a Great Day to Talk.
Be sure to follow and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform.
And until next week,
Get out there and talk.
This has been a production from a podcast studio.